Manchester United. Another crazy football day. It's the Manchester Derby. In case you didn't watch, Manchester United was completely destroyed in the first half. And when I say completely destroyed, they should have been down 5-0, if not for some horrible finishing from Raheem Sterling, who will probably be wondering where he left his finishing boots on that day. But as it turned out, United were down 2-0 at halftime and ostensibly had no chance of coming back in that game. Had United lost, it would have meant that that City would have won the title, which they still will, because they've been absolutely incredible. But they would have won it at Etihad on that day against second place Manchester United, which would have been a real kick in the teeth for Manchester United and Manchester United supporters. So United go in at the break down by 2 goals. You would be forgiven for thinking that it was going to be a bloodbath. I certainly did. I was thinking 6-1, a result like 6-1 back in the day under Sir Alex against City. As it turned out, United came out in the second half a completely different, and I say that with air quotes because we'll examine the differences here, but a different side that scored 2 goals within the first 10 minutes of the second half. One from both from Paul Pogba. And then in the 80th odd minute, maybe before that, Chris Smalling scored, completely left unmarked. And so the question is, how did Manchester United do this? How did Manchester United beat the best team by far in the league this year? So that's what we're going to get into today. Well, the first thing, they didn't really do anything different in the second half. I think that's what's really interesting about this. They didn't come out in the second half thinking, okay, we're going to push this player forward. We're going to change our tactical system. They still stuck with their 4-3-3, didn't make any substitutions, which we've seen Mourinho make. We've seen Mourinho make substitutions at the 30th minute when things aren't going well. Played exactly the same way. And yet United looked a different team. And I think it was more a psychological thing than a tactical thing. I think the allowance of the feeling from players where they were worried about being embarrassed, and it allowed them to kind of unshackle themselves, for the lack of a better word there. Because we know Mourinho likes structure in his teams. We know Mourinho likes to make sure his teams that compact are able to play on the counter. And I think the players just decided, hey, we're down 2 goals. We've got nothing to lose here. We might as well play some football. And you see that first goal. It's I mean, we're not talking enough about it because there's so much excitement about the results, and excitement, but also it's irrelevant because City are going to win the title. But you look at the build-up play in that first goal. You look at Sanchez driving through. You look at the cross to Ander Herrera, who plays a fantastic first-time ball off of his chest, perfectly placed to Paul Pogba, who then finishes beyond Manchester City's goalkeeper Ederson. And you see the kind of football that we know these players are capable of. These fantastic players that are shackled by Mourinho, talking about Lukaku and Martial and Pogba, of course, who's right here, Rashford, Ander Herrera. It's a very attacking-minded players who aren't able to express themselves on the pitch because they're more worried about what their role is when the ball is turned over than what can they do when they have the ball. So you saw this unshackling of the team, which was, I think, more to do with the players than anything Mourinho did. Because Ander Herrera said after the game, Pogba hinted after the game, Mourinho hinted after the game that he didn't really tell them to do anything different. So defensively, I think it was his focus because he felt the defense wasn't playing as well, which is pretty typical Mourinho, right? So that's an interesting one. They started the second half strongly, of course, as I said. You can make an argument that had City scored a third goal, that the game would have been finished. There's no coming back from 3-0. The fact that United got an early goal, I think, catapulted them for the rest of the half, and that's why they won. You have to look at the performance of Ander Herrera as a pivotal reason as to why United wins this game. In the absence of Ander Herrera, you don't have a player that is able to read the game as well he does in defensive positions. He was critical to collecting passes, that errant passes from City, or intercepting important passes from City and leading to counterattacks. He was important to lots of good tackles, which is an underrated thing about Ander Herrera, is how good his tackling is. And of course, like I said, the assist for the first goal, which is mind-blowing, that we are not talking about how good that assist is. So Ander Herrera is an important reason why United won. Come to Chris Smalling. You look at Chris Smalling, this is a redemption story, you guys. This is a redemption story of Chris Smalling, because he's been here before, especially against City. There's something that happens with Chris Smalling against Manchester City that doesn't happen anywhere else with Chris Smalling. And what's happened before with Chris Smalling is it was a few years ago, he got sent off. It was under Louis van Gaal for a horrible tackle, a clear sending off. And he scored the reverse fixture against Manchester City that same year, leading to conversation about the redemption of Chris Smalling. Well, it happened again this game, because in the first half, you look at Vincent Kompany's goal. Chris Smalling is not goal side of Vincent Kompany. Vincent Kompany has this easy header that he buries, because he's a fantastic player, buries beyond David De Gea. And you look at eventually in the second half, Chris Smalling is the one that scored the winner for Manchester United, and it's clear that this is a player that is inconsistent, but he's a Mourinho type of player, a player that it doesn't drop his head when things aren't going against him, because that's something Mourinho really values, is our players that are resilient, because Mourinho does tear them down, so he needs these players to be resilient and strong in character, and that's true of Chris Smalling, clearly. Cannot look past David De Gea as a pivotal reason why we won this game. Another couple of fantastic saves. At this point, I mean, if anyone's arguing that he's not the best shot stopper in the world, they're demonstrably wrong. Is he the best goalkeeper as a whole in the world is still up for debate, depending on your bias, right? Because you can look at the second goal that Manchester City scored in this game, and it is from a poor clearance, a high risk clearance from the back from David De Gea, which he was trying to play to Tony Valencia. It was intercepted by Manchester City's midfield, and all of a sudden Manchester City midfield is 3v3 against United's defense, because United's wingbacks are so far apart. So that's the sort of thing that David De Gea gets docked against David De Gea, because his shot stopping is twice as good as the next best goalkeeper. So just another great performance from him, except for that one mistake, and he's saved at least 2 or 3 goals in that game. And of course, we can't not talk about Paul Pogba. You know, with the Paul Pogba thing, there's a story continues about his $600 million fee or whatever it was that people exaggerate. But this is an elite level player. This is a player that would start in any game, and this was any team. And this was a game where Paul Pogba was under a lot of pressure after the midweek comments from Guardiola, after the follow-up comments from Mina Raiola, the snake, and then of course from Mourinho himself, who has constantly thrown Pogba under the bus, has hinted multiple times that he's not living up to his potential, that he doesn't really listen, that he doesn't follow tactical instruction. And this game, Paul Pogba was, in the second half, he was unbelievable. He really was unbelievable. His runs into the box, his distribution. You can watch highlights of this game for how good Paul Pogba was, and it's probably, I would say, outside of the Arsenal game and his very first game for United, the Southampton game, I think it's his best performance for Manchester United, and hopefully we saw a new era for Paul Pogba. And this is where I'm going to transition into my next portion, which is where do we go from here? It's hard to tell with someone like Paul Pogba. It's hard to tell what this summer means, because I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Pogba decides that he cannot achieve everything he wants to achieve at Man United, because as long as Jose Mourinho is there, he's always going to be treated like a second-class citizen. Paul Pogba is the kind of player you build a tactical system around, and in Mourinho's case, it's more a case of, if you can't make 16 tackles in a game, I don't care what you're doing up front. I only care about what you're doing in the defensive portion of the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Pogba and Martial and players of that ilk, Juan Mata, are looking to save their careers beyond Jose Mourinho, and that worries me. And we're going to end today with a question from regular listener Jason Davis. and he asks, can Mourinho change? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Mourinho can change, and that is a big issue for Manchester United as a club, as an entity, even as an entertainment company, because whichever metric you look at it, there's only one thing that Mourinho is able to guarantee, which are trophies. And I don't take that lightly. I'm cognizant of the fact that we won the Europa League last year, the Carling Cup last year, and the Community Shield, whatever that means. And we possibly will win the FA Cup and finish second this year. So that's great. If you are approaching Manchester United from that perspective, it's great. He's going to give you trophies every year. And that is his selling point. That's why he won't change, because as long as he's at least minimally successful, he can always look back to what he won at Chelsea and Real Madrid and Inter and Porto and say, this works, and this is why I'm not going to change. The issue is that Manchester United, that's just not enough, and it never will be enough, because you have to think about the entertainment factor. You have to think about who you're signing. You have to think about things that are bigger than Jose Mourinho. And I don't think Jose Mourinho is capable of that. So I don't think he'll change, and that's why I think he'll be gone, not because Manchester United will fire him. He'll be gone because he'll continually burn enough bridges that things will fall apart in terms of results. The way they did at Chelsea, the way they did at Real Madrid, the way they didn't do at Inter, to be fair, but the way they did at Chelsea before that as well. So, we'll see what happens. But we'll be back next week. Thank you for watching.